a person, when you look at this actual site plan, you don't want to, just in an artistic point of view, you don't want to put all your lettering, you know, in a straight line. You kind of want to angle it with the building and such. And so at this point, I have to remember all my angles that I learned in school. And so, you know, with this building, with this actual label, I may want to do it at a 20-degree angle. And so you'll see that right there, that lettering. And here's where I can put my angling in. And it turns it. And so I have to know my angles, otherwise I would be sitting there punching in numbers all day long and not knowing how I should turn my letters. So when I, you know, send these out with the brokers, they actually have to label everything so that you know where all your buildings are and where all of our tenants currently are. And so this is what I do when they're getting ready for a tour and telling a company, you know, this is a very good location for you. This is all the amenities that you have at this location. And so that's what I do with these.
Let me add something here. This, you know, this property was formerly a hotel, and it's in Chapel Hill, and our partner, East West Partners, really developed this, and we lease and manage this for them. But they had to go through all these approvals in Chapel Hill, and they had engineers do this. So we talked about the architects designing the building and all the angles. Well, this was done. So they did the land planning on this and decided where everything was going to go. So these engineers helped, you know, figure out how to create the driveways, the courtyards. Again, you're measuring your angles. You've got a lot of rules and regulations. You have to provide for stormwater. You have to provide for you know, trees and tree save. They have to come up with the driveways. You're limited on certain height, and you have to provide a certain amount of parking for all of that. All of these are measurements and angles and quantitative things. So it's lots of complicated measurements that stack up to a certain amount that's allowable or not allowable on that property. And then you have to present that to the town council and to all the planning staff to get approvals, to get to a point that they would say, okay, you can build this property. I mean, you can build this project within our municipality. This one here is interesting because it's a mixed-use project, and it's won a bunch of awards, but it's got a hotel, it's got retail and office, and residential, so it's you know, again, that's where it's mixed use. This is an amphitheater in the middle that creates, you know, a stage and for events and whatnot, and it has, and all the things connect. The good thing about, and the reason mixed use is popular, this arboretum up here is a mixed use property also with certain elements of mixed use, is because you share parking and people come and go during different times of the day. Like the residence is there at night, but the office people are there during the day. Or, you know, the same thing, the hotel a lot of times. So that's very popular because it you share parking with them rather than just having big open parking fields for you know, in only one use. So mixed use is popular because people they can eat lunch here and they can do a lot of things. Another interesting thing about this is this is a sustainable project. It's gold LEED certified, and so that means you're using all it's energy efficient, so it's using a lot less energy. They use a lot of recycled materials, a lot of environmental friendly materials. It's all environmental friendly, and I know your school's very much into being environmentally friendly, and that's the trend in design. So a lot of buildings are going that way in the way they're designed, and they're also becoming that's, you know, it's a good trend, and I think it's something that might be interesting for some of you. But and again, all that was done by engineers and land planners. Land planners and engineers did that part of it. Architects designed the part going up, but it's all back to angles and things like that and quantitative things.
So this actual site plan was drawn by an architect, and so they give it to me, and then I can use it in all my marketing material. And this is the finished product. You can see how I've angled all the letters, and this is actually a sheet that I would give to a broker when they go on a tour to figure out, you know, what's best about the site and what kind of amenities they have. So I've listed it all over there. When I'm designing things, I also have to space things correctly. So for instance, here I probably had it at a 1/2 inch in my program and a 1/2 inch on the other side, so that it looks completely centered and that it looks appealing to the eye. So that's what I have to do with those. And let me show you, Greg was talking to you about floor plans that architects give us, and we always have to show these to tenants. And here's an example of a floor plan at East 54. When these come to us, normally they have a scale on the bottom, maybe every inch is 10 feet in a building. And so these are things that an architect would give us. They would go out to the another thing that I designed in Cork. You just have to center everything and make it look nice so that when a broker comes in and looks at it, they know exactly what they're looking at. It's clean cut and very nice.
One more thing on this, if you lease this lease this floor to a single tenant, they just pay for leasing the entire floor. And no one ever pays for stairwells in what they lease. That's always deducted out. And that's just an industry standard in commercial real estate. But if you share tenants and you mix it up, then there's certain code issues on dead end limits and getting to stairwells and common area restrooms that are shared. And then you have to figure out how much this shared space is, and then you have to divvy it up among the tenants on a percentage basis, so that the owner of the building that owns the building gets rent on the entire floor. At the end of the day, they're going to get rent on the entire floor, and there might be a lobby in the building on the first floor that everybody shares the rent on too. But again, it's back to quantitative amounts and all these measurements and things that you're doing. People are using these in a different way. Another thing that you have to do on measurements and quantitative amounts is signage. You're allowed a certain amount of signage on the exterior of the building, whether it's for a tenant to put a name or a monument sign out that advertises that building, or maybe you let some tenants put their names on it. Well, again, you're allowed a certain amount. It's quantitative by the number of feet you have, and so you have to constantly be figuring that out so that you can know how much signage you can give to various tenants or use on your monument sign. But it's all about measurements and angles and things. Go ahead.
This is an example of a flyer that I had to do, and if you'll notice, and I can go through, it would take forever to go through the core program, but basically you'll see that I've spaced it out evenly so that it looks appealing to the eye. Again, this is, I don't know if any of you guys have seen this building. This is another building that we renovated. It's right next to Crabtree Mall. But this is just a flyer that I typically do and run with every day.
And I keep going back to this sustainable, but this building was a really old building. It was built in the early 70s, and so when we bought it and we decided to renovate it, we decided we were going to make it sustainable and LEED, and so it is a LEED building, and so we gutted it and we put energy efficient glass on it. We put the most efficient mechanical system on it, and we did we used. Go ahead.
Is that the building that has the sign that tells the temperature on it?
Yes, it is. Time and temperature building is what we call it. That's exactly it. That's right. You're right. And so again, we did all those things to make to make it LEED, which we're trying to play, because I think that's you're going to hear more about that in the future. But again, on signage, these guys wanted to put their sign on the building, and we were allowed a certain amount by the amount of road frontage we had. So we had to figure out how many feet of signage, and then by the number of sides they put the sign on, that deducted from our signage, and that also took away the signage that we had for monument signs on the ends. Again, everybody's measuring how big those signs are, and we're dealing with sign companies on that. They're helping us figure out how much signage we can have and this tenant can have, and then we're dealing with the city of Raleigh on what they'll allow. Again, it's all back to angles and measurements.
And Greg talks a lot about LEED buildings, and you'll notice a lot of the LEED buildings are all glass. And the reason they're all glass is because so much sunlight can come through, and they use less electricity, so that makes them a great building.
And they say that employees are happier and more efficient and more productive in LEED certified buildings.
I have a question about that. What about in the winter? Isn't it colder with the glass?
The glass is energy efficient enough. You don't get colder. I mean, it's an expensive glass, and so
it's not like what I have in my house.
Exactly.
I used to be in an office in the back, and our building is not LEED certified, and I was very, very cold. So if you're in a building that's not LEED certified, you are freezing all the time. And Greg always comes in because I have a heater on, and he's always really hot. And so now that I'm not in that office, it's much better.
That's right.
That was one. And another part of my job is making ads for a lot of our buildings and putting them out there. I wanted to show you an ad that I did for one of our new buildings that we just got the management on. And this is an ad that we put actually in the Cary News last weekend. And just to kind of show you what I do on a daily basis in terms of design. You'll notice 2 pictures in them, and I had to make sure they're centered. And so depending on how big these pictures were, I had to make sure that the inches on each side were actually even. And then to make it look good, you have to use different text and make sure the colors look red and they were in line with what the property was actually trying to do. With this property, this is a rather old property. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's where the Whole Foods is in Cary.
Yeah, Waverly Place on the
Waverly Place,
Regent Regency, so over near where you live. Yeah.
And it's pretty empty now, and so we're gonna rent the building is being renovated, and you want to make it look better and newer so that people are excited about it. So we put ads in the paper like this so that people will go to the website, go to Facebook and Twitter, and learn more about the property and what's going on and when construction is going to be completed. So that's something fun that I get to do. Put ads in the paper. Yes.
Could you explain just real quick how you measure with the software?
Yes. Basically, when I want to buy an ad in a paper, it would be maybe 8x5 or 8x11. Depending on what the paper specs are, they'll come in and tell us, this is what you want and this is the rate for it. So depending on my marketing budget, I have to decide what size ad is appropriate for this particular property. And we really want to get this property out there. So for this particular ad, I bought a full page ad. And so this is, and if you'll notice up here on the top, there's a ruler up here. So it's actually about 8 1/4 by, I think it's 11. And so basically I have to make sure that everything fits in here. A lot of times the pictures that I use are a lot more higher resolution, and so when you go in here, you'll notice it's a 50% of the actual photo. So, if I had it at 100%, it would be too big. You'll see it blow up. So you'll see that you can't see any of the pictures. So I have to measure it out and make sure that it looks right and that you can see all the pictures. So I have to make it smaller so that it fits. And then there's a size for all the text. This one you'll see it's at 85 point down here on the far right. If I made it any bigger, it would take up the page. Each of these squares, I have to use this specific tool, which is just a shape tool. And if you'll notice here, I can decide what the size is right here. And when you're looking at an ad, you don't want to, make it too awkward looking where one color takes up too much of the ad. And so here I decided that I didn't want the actual color to take up too much. And so here I decided that the width of the actual box is 8.375, which is how big the ad had to be width-wise, and you'll notice it down there on the right. And then the height of the actual box is only 0.5 inches, which is right there again. So I have to make sure it just looks right artistically when you turn in an ad. And a lot of times the paper will come back and tell you, there's too much color, too little color, change this, change that. So that's where I get to fix things.
Or there's too much, they don't like the font, or it's too.
Print won't come out correctly.
Yeah.
The one thing that I love about my job is actually do a lot of event planning. This year, Tri Properties is 20. It's their 20th anniversary, and I don't know if I have it on here. Show you. This is a save the date that I did for our 20th anniversary. And I could pass these around. This is something I do a lot of event planning too, and I get to make invitations, and that's the fun part of my job. I think that you get to do all these events and plan every aspect from it, from our invitation list to how we do our save the dates to how we do our invitations, and so this is actually